Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll give you an answer for that.
We could run in the lake area. Yeah. We can always do the playground.
They tell us to go up there, I'm gonna go.
I like the soccer field because you can train. I don't think so. Right, the playground.
Yeah.
For sure. It's good. It's less. I don't, that's just Al's mom. I'm not sure how they can make it for her mom. Yeah. How you doing? Good.
Alright, so you guys need to practice your names, say your names. Okay, you practice saying your names?
Hi.
You practice saying your name?
Addison. Me. My name's Addison. I'll move my name.
Well, how are you gonna know if they call you up?
Yeah. Your name's Freedom. It says on this Freedom.
Your name is Shelly, because you have shells around your neck.
Your name is 4th of July. Me Sunset. It's 4th of July.
I guess I'm Pinky.
Yeah. No, you're Bubblegum.
Bubba Yum?
Yummy Yum. No, Yummy Yum. His name is Yummy Yum. You are Starry.
You want me to roll my pants up while I'm doing presentations?
Yeah. Who's gonna be here? No, you're Pink Dude. Pink.
Okay, alright.
Hi, Pink Dude. I have to roll your pants up so everybody can see our socks.
So you're gonna take a vote.
How do you like my suit?
I have to roll my pants up so
Yeah.
everybody can see my
Yes.
socks while I'm doing the presentation?
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes.
Alright.
I'm
Show
voting.
of hands. Do I have to roll my pants up while I'm giving the board presentation so everybody can see my socks?
Put your hands up. Put your hands
Alright.
up.
Okay.
Yay.
Alright.
Vote.
Okay.
Mom, guess who won? Oh my God! Did you go away? I was this kid pulling up his shorts and going, "Allie, I got a boo-boo, Allie!" He was like pulling up his shorts like this. Allie, I got a boo-boo. Ow! I was about to get Yay! 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 You also live in
Both of this is not being televised.
You have to practice. So like practice going up. You have to sing through the microphone.
Oh, if I sing through the microphone, every window's gonna break.
La-di-da, la-di-da.
Alright, is that good?
Yeah. It's awesome.
I was told I have to roll up my pants while I'm giving the presentation so everybody can see my socks. So that's what I'm doing. It's a new
All
style.
of us did.
I'll make sure I'm standing behind the podium.
No. You have to show them. When you're walking up, you have to be like,
So how's this? Like this?
no. Yeah.
Like this?
You
Wanna step
gotta
out like this?
walk like a sloth. You're not so
How we doing?
slow. You have to walk like a sloth.
Yes.
Me too, you look so weird. Mystery, you have to walk like this. No, you have to walk like this.
Like that? Okay.
No, you have to walk like this. No. Wow.
Alright, sit down.
Okay. I'll let you in my name. I'm Mystery.
Well, you can, but then we're gonna call up the kids one at a time.
You're gonna call them up. Okay.
We'll do that.
That's right. You'll get it.
We'll do that right after the pledge, like the pledge.
Listen, my girls on the run team said I gotta come up to the podium like this. So
Mystery,
they
you
showed up,
have
so I'm gonna show up.
Mystery, you have to walk like this.
Updating. I can't do the work. You have to call 911 for me. Oh yeah.
I can do
I called them. They were like, I know they came. My guy was working there. 5 guys there. He said,
Oh, it's all the way down.
That's in front of my house.
Thank you. Fantastic. Really
I
good.
don't want to sing. That's a good sign.
After the Pledge of Allegiance, we can do. Maggie, I told you, after the Pledge of Allegiance, we'll go right.
And here are the people that want to speak.
Okay. These are the 2 speakers. That first one will be interesting.
Okay, so this is for the public comment? Chris, this is for public comment?
Yes.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Abington Heights School Board meeting for Wednesday, October 4th, 2023. Would everyone please rise and pledge the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Want to introduce Mario, or do we want to do that? No, I don't.
So we're going to do roll call?
No.
Or we want to do,
Why don't we do that? You want to do them first?
let's do roll call. Let's do roll,
Yeah, okay.
let's do roll call and then do, I think.
Roll call. Mr. Abdallah?
Here.
Mr. Azar? Here. Mr. Fleming? Mrs. Henderson?
Here.
Mrs. Karam? Here. Mr. Medensky?
Here.
Mr. Robeson?
Here.
Mrs. Tierney?
Here.
Mr. Acker?
Here.
Thank you, everyone.
That's so chipper.
Okay, we have a public presentation to make.
Yes, we do.
Who,
So we are incredibly excited to welcome the first annual Clark Summit Elementary Girls on the Run. So Mr. Emiliani, would you like to introduce your group?
Fall down, I'm sorry. So I was told that I had to come up here with my pants rolled up. It's not a new trend. I'm not trying to start anything. My suit does fit me appropriately, but they wanted to make sure that everyone could see my socks, which are bubble gum socks. So that's the most popular question at CSE every morning. What socks do you have on? I just wanted to say thank you. I appreciate this opportunity to just share one of the great things that are going on at Clark Summit Elementary this school year. I'm super excited to welcome our Girls on the Run team here. Some of our members were we have a full roster of 20 girls at CSE for our first year ever. And their families here, as well as our coaches. I believe in, it's important to offer opportunities to students academically and outside of school as well. And that being part of a school community is super important to me. And that's how we, maintain and live up or exceed, our students are the focus and excellence is the standard. We couldn't do that without your support, without our wonderful kiddos here, and without their families and our volunteer coaches who are giving their time to offer this opportunity. And we have families, 20 families, that are taking advantage of this year, new to our building. We'll also be starting off with our CSE Kids Club, which will be starting next week. Again, PTA-run opportunities for students at CSE at either minimal or no cost. And our PTA has the same vision that I do of really believing that the school is the bedrock of the community. And we do a great job here in Abington Heights at all of our schools, from what I've seen in my 3 years here, of doing that and really putting kids first and really striving for that excellent standard. So this is an excellent program. My oldest daughter, participated in when she was in grade school, and it really benefited her. So I'm super excited to welcome our coaches here this evening. We have Mrs. Sandy Polonis, who is our lead coach. We have Mariah Harding, who also is a coach on our team and volunteer. And we have Erica Wenger, who is actually a first grade teacher at CSE, who is volunteering her time to help these girls succeed and be successful. So I'd like to welcome our coaches to the podium real quick. Our program takes place on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 3 to 4:30 p.m. Mrs. Polonis is just going to say a few things. And before Mrs. Polonis speaks, I thought my mic was cut. Yeah, 3 minutes? Okay, I think I'm almost there. I have a timer in my pocket. I'm sticking to the script. I'd like to thank Gretchen Henderson as well. We started this conversation last year of really rolling out Girls on the Run and having it in every elementary school. We have had participants travel to another school, but it's really nice to host it in our own building. So thank you for your support with that.
Thank you. Hi. For those of you who don't know me, again, I'm Sandy Polonis, and along with Mariah and Erica, I am coaching Girls on the Run at CSE this year. If you're not familiar with the program, Girls on the Run is so much more than just running. We are teaching these girls to be happy and joyful and confident and how to make good decisions and to be a good person. Basically, we are just finding their inner strengths and celebrating them. While we practice our inner strengths, we also weave in a lot of physical activity. The girls are training for a 5K. All of us are. The 5K is held out at Keystone College at the end of the season. The season is 10 weeks long. So right now the girls are setting their lap goals. They're running laps at the soccer field at CSE, building their strength and their endurance so that they can successfully cross the finish line of the 5K, however they choose, whether it be running or walking or skipping or hopping, however they want to get across the finish line. Thank you. Okay, who do we have? Miss Kennedy Mignick. Oh, or do you know how, or do you want me to do them in order that you have them? Okay. So we have Aishi Asawa. She is not here. Right? McNick. Yes. All right, next. Peyton Augustine. She is not here. Nope. Eloise Dempsey. Not here. Allison Fairley. She is not here, but her mom is.
Can her brother get it? Here you go. What do you say? There you go, bud. Thank you.
Madeline Hoffman. She's not here. Macy Holden. Nope. Serena Holston. Did Serena come in? Nope. Miss Gracelyn James. Grace Kerrigan. She's not here. Gianna Luciani. Natalie McCardle. She's not here. Nope. Abigail Myers. Aurora Moreno. She is not here. Nope. Grayson Nemeka. Miss Cassidy Polonis. Cassidy is my daughter. Nora Patterson. Nope. Addison Shelley. Brooklyn Samansky. Nope. And Lucy Tallarico.
Okay, girls, come on up. Picture taking. All right, we're gonna face this way.
What happened to my
Coaches. Come on in. Listen, if I see your socks up like this, you guys are in here too.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, you ready? I don't know. They want to know if the certificates are good for ice cream. I don't know.
So, just so you know. Just have charge Mr. Abdal's account on that.
You're welcome.
So, gold standard for this is, okay. That was great. Thank you very much. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second. No, it's fine.
Did I hear a second?
Yes, me.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson, sorry.
Yes.
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Medensky?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 8-0.
Thank you very much. In the interest of time and so on, we're going to have the public comments before the superintendent's report. We have two cards that have been submitted. The first is Katie Nagel.
Nagley.
Nagley, I'm sorry, Katie.
Hi, Katie Negley, Newton Township. Just a quick little comment regarding the fighting that's occurring at the high school. Just wanted to look at the role of the SRO, maybe get a little description of that role, how many hours that person serves the building. Just a little overview of their role and what they do at our high school. That's all. Just a question.
No problem.
For whoever. Doesn't matter.
So I was about to respond to say I can also forward you an MOU that we use in a description for the school resource officer. Early last year, we had identified through a state police risk vulnerability assessment that they did, I believe, in the school year 21-22. As a result, we applied for a grant from PDE through PCCD, one of the agencies at the state. And through that process, we received an MOU. We received a couple of those, and that's what we worked with South Abington Township on with them. So I can provide you with that information. Certainly, they're there as a proactive resource, and then as a reactive support. We hope that we're spending more time in the proactive mode than we are in the reactive mode, working with students, making sure we're in the hallways, make sure at times in the classroom, working with teachers. So they have a lot of different roles and responsibilities, not only inside the building, but outside the building.
Okay, so not a district employee like many schools have. Is this person contracted for a particular amount of hours throughout the school day, or is it just like a as-needed, pop in when they can?
No, they have the hours reflect the middle school hours, at the high school hours. They are a South Abington Township employee.
Okay, so out of a school day, if I can just get an answer, a high school day, how many minutes would that person be available, visibly available, proactively, doing the things that you just described? How many hours out of the school day would you say the children come across this person? I'm not at the high school every day from the beginning to the end. I think Principal Tione would be the best one to answer that question. I can have her provide a response that way. However, what I can tell you is what we have in the MOU is they're there from the beginning of the day till the end of the day. There will be roles and responsibilities where that might take them out of the hallway and into a classroom, out into the parking lot, working with a parent, working with a principal. In cases of emergencies within South Abington Township, at times, a police officer may be called away for an emergency incident in the township, and in that case, pending on the severity of that, the police chief can reallocate a resource back up to the high school or the middle school, but that doesn't happen too often. Okay, so it's safe to say that there's somebody protecting our building throughout the whole day, unless if they're called away, as you said.
Correct.
Not an emergency. Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks.
It's publicly available in the August 2nd meeting, and it does address regular.
Ms. Nagley, it is on, Mr. Mirabelli just pointed out, on the, it's on the board docs. What's the?
August 2nd.
August 2nd, and the MOU's posted in there, so. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rihanna Avisato.
Good afternoon, members of the school board. My name is Rihanna Avisato, and I'm the senior class president. Each year, the district permits 8th grade classes to travel to Washington, D.C. for an end-of-year educational trip. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the class of 2024 missed out on this great experience. We, the class of 2024, have the same right to go on this trip as every other Abingtonites class. With this, the class of 2024 is requesting approval to move forward with the planning and execution of a trip to Washington, D.C. Throughout our class's high school career, the student government and the entire body has worked tirelessly to raise a significant sum for their class to go on this trip, as well as do numerous other senior activities. These students have planned many apparel sales, dances, 2 successful Easter breakfasts for the community, candygram sales, and partnered fundraisers with local businesses. We as a class are driven to not just raise funds for ourselves, but also to give back to the community and to help our fellow students. As a grade, we have overcome many obstacles, and with that, we have learned strong skills and life lessons. We understand that we are not 8th graders anymore, but we also do recognize that if the entire 8th grade class has this privilege, then we should be able to do so as well. This trip is just as much as an educational trip as it is a trip full of experiences and memories. We all know that there are some skills and concepts that students cannot find in a classroom or a textbook. This trip allows students to understand and to expand their ability to work with other students, to create connections, to learn the importance of working for dreams and goals, and to better learn and understand the country we live in. This trip is even more significant now, being that students have a deeper level of thinking than they did in 8th grade. And we will cherish it more as we understand the importance of friendship, education, memories, and the value of money more now. Our class has raised a significant amount of money, and we, the officers, are interested in covering portions of each student's overall cost. We are also looking into more fundraising ideas to help individual students finance for this trip. We sent out a survey to predict students' interest in the class trip. Our data shows that 94% of students who submitted the form would like to go on this trip. As we reach the end of our high school careers, there have constantly been roadblocks in bringing the class of 2024 together. Amidst these difficult times of COVID, social distancing, academic strife, and political polarization, the senior class has never been more disconnected. A common sentiment held by the current senior class is, I wish we could all just come together and be friends. Unfortunately, no one really comes forth and makes this effort to bring the class together. However, we know that with our last few remaining school dances together, our last spirit weeks together, and the last times we will all be learning together, we will become more and more connected as the year goes on. The DC trip will signify the culmination of our senior year and the time that we've spent together since the 5th grade. We will be able to talk about old memories and make new ones from the memories we could have made during our 8th grade trip. Losing a hallmark of the middle school experience combined with social distancing for our entire experience as underclassmen estranged our grade. We want that to change this year. We don't hope, but we know that through traveling to Washington, D.C., together as a class, we will be able to celebrate each other and the Abington Heights senior class of 2024 one last time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rihanna.
Is there anyone else who'd like to make a public comment?
Remind me, I have to text
Okay,
Leanne.
then
I'll
the
meet
next
with her.
item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Dr. Schaefer.
All right, thank you very much. All right, tonight I'd like to briefly go over our goals for the 23-24 school year. They'll be in a very similar format to what we had for the 22-23 school year. I'm going to review briefly some student performance data, and then we will start to present the goals, our academic goals, and then we'll also present some of our departmental goals. So above me, what you'll see is our PSSA elementary for grades 3 and 4 reading and math performance from the most recent PSSA. As you can see, for grade 3, we had a difference or a jump of 8.1%. In 4th grade, negative 9.8. For mathematics, we had a jump in 3rd grade from 10.3, and in 4th grade, minus 2.9%. So I start with this slide to talk a little bit about how we, bless you, go about constructing some of our goals. And while the PSSAs are a snapshot on a group of days, our teachers look at a myriad of data, including some of the PSSA scores. They dive into that and they start to ask some questions. I always say, ask why 5 times. And from that, we start to glean how we may move forward. One, being a little introspective and discussing what we thought we did well last year and what we need to improve. So how are we responding when kids are challenged with grade level content? And then how do we respond when students are meeting the grade level academic expectations? Go on the next one. We have our 4th and 8th grade science. As many of you are aware, the science assessments are not taken every year. They're in span, so we see grade 4, 8, and then biology. So grade 4, we saw a drop of 0.5%, and in 8th grade, a bump of 2.5%. One of the things that we've talked about one of the things that we've talked about frequently is the curriculum revision cycle. This year is science. So Dr. Vitale is working with a group of professionals, our teachers and staff, to evaluate, revise, think about where we are in science. I do not know when the last time we revised science was, but it was quite some time ago. We do have new science standards that we're taking a look at. So we're very excited about that opportunity. Much like last year, our focus was on mathematics, revising that curriculum, and you'll start to see our professional development this year, and we will continue, is focused in mathematics. Here we have Keystone scores. You'll see Algebra 1 and Is this when we looked at grade 9? For algebra. So this is, just to clarify, or a high school, some, mostly 9, some 10? Right, so we'll see Algebra 1, we had a drop of 11.9%. Biology, a drop of 8.75%, and literature, 14.3% there. So as we take a look at this, we take a look again at the high school level, how we are using our period 9 mod to intervene. What are the key performance indicators that we would look at in algebra that tell us when students are struggling or when they're meeting those expectations and how we respond to that. We also do the same thing when we take a look at the 8th graders who may have taken the algebra assessment. The literature, that's taken with 9th grade. And as many of you recall, this information is banked until they are 11th graders, and then we use that for accountability purposes. Next, we have our AP scores. So what you're looking at is a longitudinal view of AP English, so Lit and Comp, Language, Seminar, and Research. The English department has done a very good job and continues to do so. What we do not have up here, because it's provided in a lot of different ways, however, we are exceeding the national expectations, and in some cases by quite a lot. They take a look at those as a mean score, a global score. So just know that we are exceeding those standards. Next, you have our AP scores in mathematics. The same thing that we take a look at here, we're taking a look at the assessments over time. We also, which we'll talk about a little bit later, take a look at dual enrollment and our kids involved in dual enrollment and how that may impact the various AP tests and how many we're taking. But once again, the math department has done a very good job. Social sciences, again, we're seeing the same thing here. And any of the areas that we see a dip, one of the things that we do at the high school is for our teachers to take a look at that. All of our AP teachers have online access to disaggregated AP results where they can drill down to the various concepts and take a look at how the kids scored, whether that is relative to their group or nationally, and then they're able to adjust their teaching accordingly.
I have one question about
Sure.
the AP. Is it the total students in the class or just the students that take the AP exam? Students that took the exam.
Students that took the exam. We see our AP Science here. Same thing. We're seeing performance levels that are similar to before, and any time, again, that we see the dip, we revisit that, take a look at where we can improve our performance, where we can improve our instruction, how we may look at our syllabi to make sure that we are ensuring that we are providing students with instruction on standards that they are being assessed on. For our world languages, very similar. Where am I at?
Where did world language?
I know, what's that? Mine says world languages, but it's clearly
It's
science.
science. I don't know where world language went.
But if biology were a world language, 84.62% would have passed that.
I apologize. I have no idea what happened.
Can we go to the AP overalls?
We are now.
Okay, so right now we're at the AP overall scores. I will caution here, as you can see that we, in 2022-23, we had the most tests. We don't do it by student, because in some cases, some of our students take multiple assessments, and we did grow over 100 tests, but I don't necessarily look at that, you have to take into consideration how many students are in the class. We just graduated a group of 300 students. But what we take a look at is that overall passing percentage. At our last board meeting, one of the announcements that we made was about the U.S. News and World Report for this past year that put Abington Heights High School at number 34 in the state. Due in large part is they take a look at AP scores and the number of students engaged in rigorous course content, taking the courses, passing the courses, and this certainly is a big factor in that. We're proud of the portfolio of AP courses that we take. We're always taking a look at expanding that, refining that, and making sure that we are offering our students all the choices that they need to be successful in the post-secondary space. So that brings us to the goals. We'll have the middle school and the high school. We have a climate goal, a math goal, and a ELA goal. For climate, we're increasing students' reported sense of enjoying being in school by 5%, from 49% in the spring of 2023. Now remember, the last 2 years we've provided our students, parents, and teachers with a climate a survey based in part through work at the University of Chicago. And so this enjoy being in school is a metric that we have been measuring, okay? Math assessments, we have a 3% goal for the PSSA as well as ELA, both sides. In the high school, we are working on reducing failing grades on report cards. This is, Maggie and I talked about this today. We're trying a better way to word this. That percentage is a low percentage of 4.09, so we said we want to have that. Our goal is to bring that down to 2.5%. So that's why we ended up with the 1.5. That makes any sense. So we had. So this is a strategic use of how we are using our period 9 mod as an intervention block, how we are monitoring our students, as well as how we are communicating with our parents. One of the things that we're working on with the Office of Technology through Infinite Campus is that there is a functionality that we are currently not using. Well, quite frankly, we're not paying for it. It's an add-on service, but it's what we call a backpack. And it allows us to generate reports for our families, progress reports on intervals that we decide, right? So I would say that 9 weeks is too much, right? It's too long. How can we provide our parents with attendance data, grade data, behavioral data that they have access to right on their phone? How can we monitor that in a manner that we can make sure that we catch kids earlier rather than later? Okay. In attendance, we have a 2% from basically 92. This is, again, something, our attendance historically has been very good, but we also know that our students need to be in school. So regardless of where that is, what do we need to do to ensure that all of our kids are in school and in class?
You can't, like, God forbid, flu comes through and a lot of kids are out. That's like an event, and that really can affect you and that goal for the entire year.
Correct.
You take that out, it's like that one data point that,
Yeah.
in statistics, you take that one data point and you kind of like, yeah, you don't lose it, but you kind of circle and say you can explain it.
We could individually, but as we report it to the state, that doesn't. So there are cases, particularly in the last couple of years, where we've had schools and grade levels and that have been kind of hit by that. Okay, let's go into.
Is there a correlation with the failing grade and lack of attendance? You find that there's a correlation with that student?
There's some intersectionality is what I would say. Oftentimes, if you don't come to school And then when you do come to school, if you're a behavioral issue, that there's a high probability that you're probably struggling academically as well. But it's really important, that's a great point, that we take a look at to see. And this is some of the more advanced work that we'll be doing later. So, for instance, this is a great example today for Girls on the Run, right? So, you know, at some point we will be able, like we do in the high school, to identify extracurriculars that students are involved in. And is there a relationship or a correlation between student involvement in some of these programs and increased attendance? High academic performance, right? Or perceptions about enjoying school. Do more students cite that they enjoy being in school that are also involved in extracurriculars or a program like Girls on the Run or something? We're not yet there yet. We don't have the analytics for that, but we will get to that point, because that's important information to catch. We know perceptually that you saw the kids here today, they love being in Girls on the Run. But we want to capture some more data with that.
Thank you. Next slide.
Yep. So the elementary goals, I'm not going to read all of them. I'll be forwarding this out. This is also available on the website, but very similar. We've set 3% goals in that, as well as making up for some deficits that we saw from the previous year. One of the things that Dr. Vitale, the principals, and the teachers are working on, which I've mentioned previously, is that we have some diagnostics, short cycle assessments, some indicators, some assessments, if you will, that some students take and we use for predictors that we say, okay, this is where the students perform. That was, let's say, we're below grade level or exceeding, and we're able to put interventions in place. Well, we started to notice last year a disconnect. So, for instance, at one of our elementary schools, we had a higher percentage of students that exceeded a certain benchmark on this. And that didn't translate over to the PSSA. So now we are working to see what other types of predictors might we use that are more accurate and have a stronger relationship with performance that way. And that will always, like just what we were talking about, that we're always constantly working on that, because we don't have something that's causal, or there's this very strong correlation. They may report it, but we may not notice it and observe that. We have South Abington and Waverly. These are similar. All of our elementaries, we have the same standards, same expectation, yet the targets are different based on performance. So now we have our department goals. We have human resources in special education. We have a new human resources director that's here. I won't have you come up. Karen, if you could raise your hand so everybody could see you, right? So we have 3 goals here. One is to evaluate the onboarding process and update procedures, including frontline, to improve the user experience, utilize the automated functions, and ensure timely onboarding of new staff. So last year was the first year that we went to an automated application process. And as we've all read in the news, it's very difficult to find educators in our space, whether that's a paraprofessional, someone working in the custodial maintenance department, or a teacher, or even an administrator. So when we get those people in, we want to make sure that we are onboarding them appropriately so they can be successful. So one of the things that Karen has set a goal on is to make sure that they have a great experience. We're able to capture all the information that we need, so we're not out of compliance. There's a lot of things that are compliance-oriented with HR, and now we're automating a lot of those procedures, so we want to make sure that we are hitting that standard. Similarly, we need to develop an offboarding process to capture data from employee departures, okay? So we've talked about this before. We're going to put together a plan so when folks, employees leave, we're able to capture information about their experience here, right? Was it fantastic? Was they not so happy with the experience? So what is it? Are there things that we need to improve? That's really important information to have. And then evaluate compliance with the Affordable Care Act requirements and establish processes for tracking part-time hours. So this is something that we have plenty of, and we just need to make sure that we are in compliance with federal and state guidelines. And then the other Karen Zukowski is here today for special education, also 3 goals. To develop a pilot tool to determine students' need for a personal care assistant with IEPs. So one of the things that Karen is able to do is we do have some niche needs. And we know areas that we have goals to improve on. So one of them is the personal care assistants. If we start to see something that's popping up and we don't have a quality resource to determine if we need that, then we ought to develop something that works well. So Karen will be doing that, as well as putting together a plan for an emotional support program, making sure that that's evidence-based. We do have some emotional support classrooms. We have a growing percentage, and we need to make sure that we are providing the best programming possible. So that's something that Karen is working on as well. As our life skills program and the transition to post-secondary services. I was just in the VFAT classroom cooking the other day. This is a fantastic program, and one thing that we always do is make sure that we are providing for transitions in students and work experiences. And this starts when students are very young. As a 9th grade counselor, this is one of the first things that I worked on with families when they would be matriculating to the high school. So a lot of great goals here. Student services, restructuring our school counseling social work model to accommodate crisis counselors at each level. So this is the first year that we will have a crisis counselor at all 3 spans, elementary, middle, and high school. That means that we need to take a look at our personal care model and, how our counselors, how our crisis counselors and social worker are working in tandem, as well as with our outside providers. They have a pretty good grip on that now. However, we know we can provide a better service there. Trauma-informed care practices in the classroom. Again, something that the student services is constantly working on. And this isn't something that we provide any data on, other than we do have discussions in our different student service meetings where we talk about some of the trauma that our students are experiencing. Some of that is self-reported, some of that is reported by our families. And we just take a look at what resources we can offer, not only in the classroom, but in the school for those students. And then finally, drug and alcohol programming and developing custom transcripts to reflect student achievement and success. So I had mentioned before something with Infinite Campus and Backpack. We're also working with our Infinite Campus providers to make sure that we have a transcript that's more customized. And that's just something that's just always constantly working. Every school has different courses that they would like to put on or don't want to put on, or different data that they want on or don't want on. And oftentimes these are custom builds. Think, Phil, we may call these sprints. They have a cost sometimes, but at the end of the day, we'll have a program that can generate what we need. Transportation, developing a system of capacity within transportation, a run book, communicate processes and procedures done annually, as well as evaluating the effectiveness of our current transportation software package. So This is a big lift. We do have an older, perhaps somewhat outdated software package. Last year, we did look at another software package, and we will continue to do that and work with our providers. We're always looking to find the most efficient and effective routes. We work with more than one provider. We work with several providers. We're not only, working with buses, but vans, and we're just trying to figure out the best way to transport our students. And in some cases, some of these software packages are very much updated and can accommodate changes that we are seeing in roadway conditions, et cetera, not unlike what we experienced in the last month with some of the flooding. We had bus drivers out on both those days trying to figure out, ways around. And in some cases, they're still on those routes and trying to figure out the best way to do that. So we need to find a very nimble, agile program that will accommodate those needs. And finally, technology. Updating our firewalls within the district, develop a cyclical process of technology purchases, and working to improve rostering with Google Classroom. We have made a significant amount of investments in our technology side. We've upgraded over the last 2 years from, Windows 2003. We have put in these switches and firewalls where we're in a pretty precarious position when we were facing times where we would have to be engaged in online instruction. Also, good or bad, we had funding during the pandemic, and we bought a bunch of Chromebooks, like a lot of other school districts. And all those Chromebooks will end their life cycle at the same time. So we need a predictable cycle so we can appropriately forecast and budget for updates. Now, we did get some very good news from Google in that they will be extending the software fee, am I right, for 10 years? The licensing. This is a really important thing because what would happen is the licensing for some of these Chromebooks that we purchased would just stop at 5 years. And then we would bring them down to, say, the elementary school where we knew that they could run it for whatever they needed it for. But our high school students couldn't use it. Now, with this change in Google, we're going to have a longer lifespan. So that helps us out. We still need to put in a purchasing cycle that way. And improving the rostering for Google Classroom. Justin has done a great job this way, as Phil and the tech committee as well, is that, as we call that, the single sign-on. So now we're able to take the resources in Google Classroom and the Google suite of different programs that they use, and we can sync that with an information system that our teachers are using in their gradebook. So there is one point, back when you'd be working on some Google Classroom, but it wouldn't sync back up into the teacher's gradebook. So we're working on all sorts of technological innovations that way to make things a lot easier for our students, families, and teachers. And that's all I have. That it will be publicly accessible for everybody. And if we need to amend everything as we go forward, then we'll certainly do that.
Very good, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next action
It's me.
would be to action and discussion items. Mr. Schaefer?
Yes, Mr. Ackert asked that the board consider a motion to approve the personnel report as presented.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call?
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Medensky?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
And Mr. Acker?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 8-0.
Tom, you're back out there, aren't you? Hey, you can stand up, raise your hand. This is our new Director of Buildings and Grounds.
Also, I believe Kathy Platt is here.
Is she Kat? No, I didn't see it.
I haven't seen Kathy here,
Yep, but, yeah, just one other, it can be a little bittersweet because I'm so excited to have Tom here, and also we'll be losing Eric in November. I'm glad that we're going to have some transition time, but he's been with the district for a really long time, and we wish him all the best. I mean, if you know Eric, he'll be out there doing gymnastics, coaching gymnastics, so he'll be having a great time, and we really look forward to Tom and Eric working together and having this transition. Thanks. At this time, I'd ask the board to consider a motion to approve the School Business Consultants LLC Management Service Agreement to perform day-to-day operations for the district office.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call.
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Medensky?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
And Mr. Acker?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 8-0.
Sir, I could ask the board, consider a motion to approve the settlement agreement between Abington Heights School District and student 18X.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call.
Mr. Medensky?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
And Mr. Acker?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 8-0.
Okay, the next agenda item is listing information. Is there any informational items that we need to present? There are none. Is there any unfinished business? Any new business? In that case, I call for
Just
a
a,
motion
oh,
to adjourn.
Mr. Ecker, just a brief update and reminder that we do have our IT Technology Committee meeting. That's next week at 6:30. And ironically, Superintendent Schaefer talked about one of the big things that we're looking at this week. We look at a number of things, but the big one is the device recommendation, the one-to-one replacement strategy, because the big thing we need to do in terms of financial responsibility is having a predictive life cycle for these things. It helps determine what kind of contracts we can have purchasing, how long they last, and some of the options around maintenance and new and things like that. So we previously in our other meeting, and I mentioned this in another board meeting, that we went through about 6 different options. We whittled it down to 3, and I think what we're hoping to do is to come to a recommendation in that meeting, which is next week.
You bring up a good question. What do you consider is the typical lifespan for a Chromebook?
So the Chromebooks, I think the lifespan was 5, which is
5 years?
long, I think. Depending, so don't, I think we have to remember, we couldn't really get a good idea of how the Chromebooks were really performing because we had our infrastructure that was not up to par. So now, the limiting factor in some of the technology things that we're doing is around Chromebooks. So we're looking at, is that even the right answer?
So as we develop more and more focus on STEM and technology going forward, and obviously technology's expanding at an increasingly rapid pace, how does a 5-year-old Chromebook affect a student trying to learn some new technology?
Right. And those are the things it's a great question. Yeah. It's,
We don't know
yeah.
what to say. Okay. In that case, we're adjourned. Thank you all very much.
it's your boss.